those who are members of the church, those who are going through the great tribulation. I was talking with, and they listened to us on the internet. In fact, he said, I saw you on Facebook the other day, Brother Benny, and I just got talking to him, asking some questions. And he said, I wish you'd been here about an hour or two ago. He said, we had one of the most terrific Bible discussions, and I knew the man's brother that he was talking about, so we had a good conversation. But usually when today in the religious world, when you talk about tribulation, they immediately conclude that you're talking about the 7 years of tribulation, which they call the rapture. And this is going on just prior to Jesus coming back and setting up his kingdom and ruling and reigning for 1,000 years on the face of the earth. And what's the truth on the subject? Is the tribulation, is that rapture? Well, I'll be very frank, very honest, very sincere. The word rapture don't even appear in the Bible one time, Old Testament or New. It is a manufactured word by the religious world that sounds great. Be careful when you sing some of the songs that are in our songbooks, brethren. It uses the word rapture, rapturous. Be careful what you sing in the content of songs, that you're saying something that you really don't believe, that you really don't understand. The concept of the rapture is all over the religious world out here. And all the tribulation and all the trouble that's going on in the world in which we live today, the movements of Iran and over in the Middle East and all of these activities, that they are signs of the times of Jesus just around the corner. I won't be rude, but I won't say very frankly, that's much baloney. Much of baloney. The signs of the times are not fitting biblical concepts in the sense that the rapture's coming. I don't even know where you would get close in the Bible to any kind of a concept along that line. This tribulation area is where they're getting it. But these that are seen in the opening of these seals are those people who have been washed in the blood of the Lamb, and they've kept their garments washed white. We Christians keep our garments washed white by obeying the second law of pardon. You become a Christian by being baptized into the death of Jesus, where his blood washes our sins away. You stay a Christian by observing the second law of pardon. And evidently these people had kept their garments washed white in blood of the Lamb. They knew what it meant to confess their sins and pray and ask God to forgive them. That's what second law of pardon is. The religious world says that's what you do to become a Christian. They don't know what they're talking about. They're wrong. You do not confess your sins and pray and ask God for forgiveness to become a Christian. You do that to stay a Christian. Every day you live. Obey the second law of pardon. Not any skin off my nose, but it will keep you in a right relationship with the Lord. And that's important. Very important. Now, there's one other thing in that last chapter that I want us to look at, and that's the 3 distinctive blessings of verse 17. The fourth, it's so easy to get things mixed up. The the Lamb, which is Christ, verse 17, which is in the midst of the throne, and that's where Jesus is. He's in eternity. He's with God. He's at his right hand. He is ruling and reigning on David's throne. And what is it that Jesus is doing for these people here in this chapter? One, the Lamb which is in the midst of the throne shall feed them. Shall feed them. What does that mean? Jesus says, I am the bread of life. It is his truth, his principles, and ideals and character that is being fed, even in this eternal concept, the blessing of Jesus feeding them. Number two, and shall lead them, who will do that? Jesus, the Lamb, and shall lead them unto living fountains of waters. Jesus said, I am the water of life. Jesus says that if you will drink of me, ye shall never thirst. And he's not talking about physical thirst. He's talking about spiritual thirst. Jesus will lead them unto living fountains of waters. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. I don't know if you've ever had a problem with that concept. I have. I thought about it and I thought, I don't know what that means. And I don't yet probably know everything I'd like to know about it. But you ever sung the song, No Tears in Heaven? Think about it. Beautiful song. Will there be no tears in heaven? Yes, I believe that's true. But what's God doing, wiping all tears from these people's eyes? If there's going to be no tears over there. Anytime you come up with an explanation that contradicts the rest of the Bible, lay it aside, because you missed it. The only thing that I can come up with that fits and makes any real sincere sense about this verse. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. You notice the sentence in the outline? I wrote that myself. I didn't write it out of a book. Beside the word tears is a question, and then this sentence. The life that we lived on earth was full of tears, heartaches, sufferings, troubles. But no doubt this note of aspiration for future comfort was given to lift our hopes to a place where there would be relief. I don't know all the answers to everything. And you come up with the contradiction that there won't be any tears in heaven, but here God's going to wipe all their tears away. And somewhere or another, I've missed it in my feet to understand things. God's able to erase all sorrows, tears, hurts. Did you ever have somebody say something and you didn't react to it whatsoever, but it cut you to the heart, and spiritually you just sobbed inside? If you've never had that happen, you haven't lived long enough yet, because you will. God is able to take care of whatever grief, sorrow, trouble, cutting remark, problem that you've had to face. God can handle it. Okay, Karen? There's more kinds of tears than just tears of sorrow. You can be having so much fun and laughing that you cry. I don't know. I say this is an area which I don't understand, and but I think there's a real good point here. Whatever it is, God will handle it. He'll take care of it. Have you ever thought about this one? You make it over to the other side, and you kind of go looking around a little bit, and all of a sudden, I don't see so-and-so here. Didn't make it. One of my favorite expressions is I work through the cemetery, I tally. I go by people that I've known for years. And in my own soul, I say, well, I hope you made it. I don't know of anybody that I don't want to make it to heaven. I don't hate anybody that bad that I want to see them miss eternity with God. But if we look around up there and we see that so-and-so's not here, God will help us handle it some way. You think about it right now. We're on this side of the grave, and there are people that we know that have died and gone on, and they weren't faithful. They just completely forsook the Lord. Didn't darken the church building for 20 years and died that way. We handle that in this life, don't we? We deal with it. Well, God's going to help us deal with it over there too. And He'll make it out some way to get us to understand. Now, chapter 8, we need to move on. There's 13 verses, and Cora, are you recording this now? When we read around the room, does that mess you up? Okay. All right. Chapter 8, verse 1, let's start with Martha. If you don't want to read, that's fine. We're not trying to put you on the spot. We've got about that many people. Let's read one verse apiece in chapter 8, and then we'll get a few comments, okay? Chapter 8, verse 1. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. This gets you. Okay, Karen. Go ahead and read. Okay, verse 10. Bill? Okay, Paul. Okay, thank you very much for helping that reading. Now, if you recall, the opening of the seals, 6 of them had been opened through chapter 6. And the sealing of these people in chapter 7 was a postponement until the 7th seal being opened in chapter 8 and verse 1. So who is it that is opening these seals? It's Jesus himself. He has the power. He was the lamb that was slain from the foundation of the world. God gave him the opportunity, the ability, the power to open these seals and let us see what is inside. Now, I'm not going to go into the ridiculous things I have heard people say that Revelation 8 verse 1 says. I don't think it's very funny. I don't think it's something that you can just kind of pass off as a passing idea. But I've heard some pretty ridiculous things said about the silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. If in what I've studied and tried to come to some conclusions, what this simply is meaning, in the 7 angels which are going to give the 7 trumpets, and the 7 trumpets are simply the pending judgments of God that are going to be pronounced upon the spiritual world. And anytime, you even notice it in court proceedings, whenever a judge is about to pronounce the decision of the jury or his final statement on a certain ruling, you know what happens in the courtroom? Silence. Silence. Why? They want to see how things are going to go. They want to see what is coming out of this situation. What does the future hold for the one that is being on trial? What does the future hold for those who are under the impending judgment of God to come? And that's what's coming out here in chapter 8. And these 7 angels with the 7 trumpets, have you ever stopped to think that the Bible says that when Jesus comes, you know what's going to happen? The trump of God is going to sound. And when it does, this old earth and everybody on it, every eye's going to see. There'll be those who will cry for the mountains and the rocks to fall on them and hide them from the coming of the presence of the Lord. But it's going to get quiet. And these 7 angels, there's 4 of them in chapter 8, 3 of them in chapter 9. I don't have the answer for what these angels say or declare, but there's some pretty good phrases in this chapter. At verse 3, the first angel, his trumpet gives forth. Another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer. There was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. The giving of the 7 angels and their trumpets are unfolding. I'm ahead of myself. It doesn't come to verse 6. There's two places in the chapter where another angel besides these seven angels speaks. And I remembered studying that. But this angel that came to start with is an introduction to what is about to happen. And the first angel is in verse 7. This other angelic being, this messenger, is giving forth some admonitions to what's going on. And as I said, I don't understand all that's here. I don't know the figurative language, the smoke of the incense, of the prayers came up the prayers of the saints. All this is tremendous thoughts to get your attention. So the first angel sounds, I'll get back to basics. The first angel sounds in verse 7. And you have 4 of these in chapter 8, and you'll have 3 in chapter 9. Well, what was it the first angel sounded? What did he give forth? Verse 7. And there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and the third part of trees was burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. The hail and the fire, I don't know exactly what that means. I don't know that there is a definite interpretation you could put on that. Back when this was first given in about the 96 AD, the understanding of people on the earth at that time was a certain way of what hail and fire mingled with blood meant. Our concept of it today is differently. But whatever this partial hurting of the trees, third part of the trees was burnt up, all green grass was burnt up. This angel is giving forth tremendous thought. God's impending judgment is coming, and he's getting their attention. The second angel, verse 8, and the second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea. And the third part of the sea became blood, and the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. One person writing on these first two angels, you notice the third business. They came up with a word, and they called it partial. If you've got 3/3 makes whole, 1/3 would be a partial amount of destruction or whatever it was that was coming. Third part of the sea, third part of the creatures which were in the sea, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. These are phrases that simply warn and tell us that God's judgment's coming. We need to be aware of that. We need to understand that we are a part of the world, and that these angels are announcing the impending judgment of God to come. The third angel sounds in verse 10. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. The name of the star is called Wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. Now, there's some room for some study right there. The word wormwood is an Old Testament word. And there were some applications and illustrations from the Old Testament that could be brought in right there. If you were a liberal and you wanted to make this sound highly exciting, you would probably come up with the idea that this is talking about modern pollution of the waters of the rivers and the seas. I'm not a liberal, and I don't believe that's really what it's talking about. But whatever it was that was happening, the waters were being affected, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. You can become so practical that you would make the Bible completely irrelevant if you're not careful in making applications along these lines. The fourth angel sounded in verse 12. We've only got about 3 minutes. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. That's interesting. I don't understand a lot of this. How could this actual solar sun be affected with a third of its power and potential? I don't know what that's all about. Or the third part of the stars, or the third part of the moon, or a third part of time of the day. The day shone not for a third part of it. In other words, is that saying that only 16 hours of the day had sunlight in it? Well, you don't have 16 hours in the day of sunlight anyway. Don't become so practical in your applications that you miss the real point, the impending judgment of God. And we're going to face it. I pulled several sources on lessons on the judgment. And they would be very practical to come in right here in the 8th and 9th chapter and give some good sound biblical lessons on the judgment. And I may do that. I haven't decided sure what next Sunday morning's sermon is going to be. But I got several good lessons on the judgment that would fit in and cause us to do some thinking. But the last verse of chapter 8 is another angel flying, just like the other angel in verse 3. And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the 3 angels which are yet to sound. And this is another angel introducing, getting attention for the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th angels sounding in chapter 9. I don't have all the answers. I don't know anybody that does. The book of Revelation is a tremendous challenge for us to read and study. And if you're not careful, you can make it say things that is in absolute contradiction to the rest of the Bible. And when you do that, you're wrong. And that's what the world is doing out here. They are making applications to what's going on in our present time. And that is in absolute contradiction to what the rest of the Bible teaches. And they've missed the boat. I don't want to miss the boat. I don't want to teach something that's not true. I don't want to come up with some high-sounding doctrine that would captivate somebody's mind and make them want to come, go to church here because of the exciting things that are said in the book of Revelation. We're not trying to be exciting. We're trying to be plain and practical and come up with truths that will cause us to recognize what we need to do. So study on in chapter 9, and Lord willing, we'll pick up there and go on next Sunday. Any question, any comment? Thank you very much.